I stared at the leather-bound bill folder in front of me, my hands trembling as I lifted the corner to peek at the damage. $847.32. $847.32 for brunch at Café Laurent, the most exclusive French cafe in Manhattan. Marcus was gone. Just 5 minutes ago, he'd excused himself to take an important call, kissed my cheek, and promised he'd be right back. That was 20 minutes ago. Now, the waiter was hovering nearby, probably wondering if I was going to make a scene. I opened my purse with shaking hands. My checking account had exactly $342.17 in it. My credit card was maxed out from last month's emergency car repair. My stomach twisted into knots as I pulled out my phone to check my bank app one more time, praying that somehow money had magically appeared. It hadn't. How pathetic am I? I whispered to myself, fighting back tears. This was supposed to be a celebration. 3 months of dating Marcus Chun, the charming investment banker I'd met at a networking event. 3 months of him promising me the world, telling me I was different from other women he dated, making me believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd found someone who saw past my struggling artist exterior to the person I really was. The waiter approached again, this time with less subtlety. "Miss, whenever you're ready." I'm so sorry," I stammered, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "Could you give me just a few more minutes? My date stepped out and—" "Of course," he said with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I could read his thoughts clearly. "Sure, honey. That's what they all say." I texted Marcus for the 3rd time. "Where are you?" The bill came. Nothing. Not even the little dots that would indicate he was typing. I looked around the cafe, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the white marble tables, the well-dressed patrons who probably wouldn't blink at an $847 brunch bill. Women in Chanel suits sipped champagne. Men in $1,000 watches discussed business deals. And here I was, Emma Rodriguez, wearing a dress I'd found at a thrift store and carefully steamed to look presentable, about to be exposed as the fraud I felt like. My phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Marcus. "Sorry, babe, emergency at work. Had to run. You got this, right? You're always so independent. Talk later." I read it 3 times, each time feeling more nauseated. He ditched me. Deliberately. This wasn't an emergency. This was a calculated move. And the worst part, I'd seen the signs. The way he always forgot his wallet. How he'd suggested this place, insisting it was his treat for our 3-month anniversary, even though I'd said a simple dinner would be fine. The smirk on his face when we ordered the tasting menu with wine pairings. He'd set me up. I had no other alternative, I muttered, grabbing my phone with trembling fingers. I opened my contacts, scrolling past friends who were just as broke as I was, past my parents who I'd rather die than admit this to, past my sister who'd warned me about Marcus in the first place. Then I stopped on a name I hadn't called in 6 months, David Park. David was my ex-boyfriend from college. We'd dated for 2 years before amicably splitting when he moved to Seoul for a business opportunity. We'd stayed friends, occasionally texting about life updates. He was back in New York now. I knew because he'd mentioned it in his last message 3 weeks ago, asking if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I'd said yes, but then gotten swept up in the Marcus whirlwind and never followed up. My finger hovered over his name. This was mortifying. Calling an ex to bail me out of a date gone wrong. But what choice did I have? I pressed dial before I could overthink it. "Emma!" David's warm voice came through after 2 rings. "This is a surprise. I was starting to think you were ghosting me." "David, my voice cracked. "I need help. I'm in trouble." The warmth in his voice immediately shifted to concern. "What's wrong? Where are you?" "Café Laurent. On 5th Avenue. I took a shaky breath, tears threatening to spill over. "My date left me here with an $847 bill, and I don't have enough money to cover it, and I'm so sorry to call you like this, but I didn't know who else." "I'll be there in 10 minutes. David cut me off firmly. "Don't move. Don't pay anything. Just sit tight, okay?" "David, you don't have to." "Emma!" His voice softened. 10 minutes. I promise." The line went dead, and I sat back in my chair, covering my face with my hands. What had my life become? 28 years old, with a fine arts degree I couldn't afford to use, working 3 part-time jobs just to make rent on a studio apartment in Queens, and now this, being rescued by my ex-boyfriend from a humiliating date disaster. The waiter appeared again, this time with the manager beside him. My heart sank. "Miss," the manager began, his tone polite but firm, "I understand there may be some confusion about the payment." "Someone's coming," I blurted out. "He'll be here in 10 minutes. I promise. I'm not trying to skip out on the bill." The manager exchanged a look with the waiter. "Of course. We'll give you a few more minutes." They walked away, but I could feel their eyes on me. The couple at the next table had started whispering, glancing in my direction. I wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. True to his word, exactly 9 minutes later, I saw David walk through the cafe entrance. He'd changed since I last saw him, still lean and handsome, but there was a new confidence in the way he carried himself. His dark hair was styled differently, shorter on the sides. He wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and when he spotted me, his face broke into a concerned smile. "Emma," he said, reaching my table and immediately taking the seat across from me. His eyes scanned my face, taking in what was probably my mascara-streaked cheeks and red-rimmed eyes. "Are you okay?" "I'm mortified," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "David, I'm so sorry to drag you into this mess. I didn't know who else to call and—" He reached across the table and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Hey, you did the right thing. That's what friends are for, right?" The waiter materialized instantly. Apparently, they'd been watching David's arrival. "Sir, miss, are you ready to settle the bill?" David didn't even look at the folder. "I'll take care of it, and add a 25% gratuity." "Very good, sir." The waiter's entire demeanor had changed. Suddenly, we were valued customers instead of potential dine-and-dashers. As David pulled out a black credit card and handed it over without even checking the amount, I felt a fresh wave of shame wash over me. "I'll pay you back," I said quickly. "I swear, I'll pay you back every penny. I just need some time to—" "Emma, stop." David's voice was gentle but firm. "You're not paying me back. This isn't a loan, but $800 is nothing compared to making sure you're okay." He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "Tell me what happened. Who was this guy?" So I told him. Everything. How I'd met Marcus at a marketing networking event, how he'd swept me off my feet with fancy dates and expensive gifts, how I'd ignored my friend's warnings that he seemed too good to be true, how he'd insisted on coming to Café Laurent for our 3-month anniversary, promising it was his treat, only to abandon me with the bill. David's jaw tightened as I spoke, his hand clenching into a fist on the table. "Marcus Chun, investment banker." I nodded, surprised. "You know him." "I know of him. He works at Stellar Investments, right?" When I nodded again, David's expression darkened. "He's got a reputation. This isn't the first time he's pulled something like this. There are stories about him in the finance circles. Apparently, it's some kind of sick game he plays. Takes women to expensive places, ditches them with the bill, then brags about it to his colleagues." My stomach turned. "Are you serious?" "Unfortunately, yes." David's eyes met mine, filled with anger on my behalf. "Emma, you deserve so much better than this. Better than him." The waiter returned with a receipt, which David signed without looking. When we were alone again, he stood and offered me his hand. "Come on, let's get out of here." I took his hand, letting him pull me to my feet. As we walked out of Café Laurent together, I felt the stares of other patrons follow us. But with David beside me, steady and solid, I found I didn't care as much. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and cool. David hailed a cab with practiced ease. "Where to?" he asked. "I should probably just go home," I said, even though the thought of going back to my tiny apartment and dwelling on this disaster made me want to cry. "I've already ruined enough of your Sunday." "You haven't ruined anything," David said. "And you're not going home to sit alone after what just happened. We're going to get real food, not overpriced French pastries, and you're going to tell me everything that's been going on in your life for the past 6 months." Before I could protest, he'd given the driver an address in Brooklyn, and we were pulling away from the curb. "Where are we going?" I asked. "My favorite Korean restaurant," David said with a small smile. "The owner is my grandmother's friend. The food is amazing, it's cozy, and nobody there cares about impressing anyone. Just good food and good company. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd arrived. You've changed, I said softly. 6 months in Seoul will do that to you, he replied. I learned a lot about myself, about what matters. He paused, then added, I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for us back then, Emma. That's one of my biggest regrets. My heart skipped a beat. David, I know, he said quickly. I know the timing is terrible, and you just went through something traumatic. I'm not trying to. This isn't me trying to take advantage of the situation. I just want you to know that seeing you again, even under these circumstances, has reminded me of what I lost. We rode in silence for a few minutes, the city sliding past the windows. Finally, I spoke. I missed you too. After we broke up, I tried to convince myself it was for the best, that we wanted different things. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of what? Of being left behind, I admitted. You were moving to Seoul for this amazing opportunity, and I was stuck in New York, barely making ends meet with my art. I felt like I was holding you back. You never held me back, Emma. You inspired me. He turned to face me fully. Half the reason I took that job in Seoul was because I was afraid I wasn't good enough for you. You're this incredibly talented artist with such a unique vision, and I was just a business guy. I thought you needed someone more creative, more, I don't know, artistic. I laughed, but it came out as more of a sob. That's ridiculous. You were perfect. You were perfect. And I've been dating jerks like Marcus because none of them were you. The cab pulled up in front of a small restaurant with a red awning and Korean characters on the sign. David paid the driver and helped me out. Inside, the restaurant was exactly as he described, warm, cozy, filled with the delicious smell of sizzling meat and kimchi. An elderly Korean woman emerged from the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw David. David, ah! She exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. Then she noticed me, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity. And who is this beautiful girl? Mrs. Kim, this is Emma. Emma, this is Mrs. Kim. She makes the best bulgogi in all of New York. Mrs. Kim studied me for a moment, then smiled knowingly. Ah, Emma, David talked about you many times. Come, come. I give you best table. She led us to a corner booth, tucked away from the other diners, and within minutes, the table was covered with small dishes, banchan, kimchi, pickled vegetables, and a sizzling plate of bulgogi that made my mouth water. Eat, eat, Mrs. Kim insisted. You both too skinny. As we ate, I told David about the past 6 months. The struggles with my art, the 3 jobs I was juggling, the tiny apartment, the pressure from my parents to get a real job. And as I talked, David listened, really listened, in a way Marcus never had. Why didn't you tell me things were so hard? David asked, his voice soft with concern. Pride, I guess. I wanted to prove I could make it on my own, that I didn't need anyone's help. I pushed a piece of bulgogi around my plate. Looks like that worked out great. Emma, asking for help isn't weakness. It's smart. He hesitated, then said, I have a proposition for you. And before you say no, just hear me out. I looked up at him warily. Okay. I'm starting a new venture. A cultural consulting firm that helps American companies understand and market to Asian consumers, and vice versa. I need someone who understands both the creative and business sides, someone who can bridge cultures through visual communication. My heart started beating faster. David, what are you saying? I'm saying I want to hire you as my creative director. Full-time position, competitive salary, benefits, the works. You'd have complete creative freedom, and your art background would be perfect for what we're trying to build. I stared at him, speechless. I don't have experience in corporate consulting. I'm an artist, not a business person. That's exactly why I need you. I have plenty of business people. What I don't have is someone who can take complex cultural concepts and make them visually compelling. Someone who understands the immigrant experience, who's lived between cultures. Someone with your talent and vision. This feels like charity, I said quietly. Like you're trying to rescue me. David reached across the table and took my hand again. This isn't charity, Emma. This is me recognizing talent when I see it. Do you know why I went to Seoul? The real reason. I shook my head. After we broke up, I was lost. I threw myself into work, but nothing felt meaningful. Then I went to Seoul for a conference, and I saw how Korean companies were using art and design to communicate cultural values. It was beautiful, powerful, and it reminded me of you, of the way you used to talk about art as a universal language. He squeezed my hand gently. That experience changed my whole career trajectory. I realized I didn't want to be just another investment banker. I wanted to build something that mattered, something that connected people across cultures. And every time I worked on this business plan, I kept thinking, Emma would know how to do this. Emma would have the perfect vision for this. Tears welled up in my eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of shame or embarrassment. David, so yes, I'm offering you a job, but it's not because I feel sorry for you or because I want to rescue you. It's because you're exactly the person I need to make this venture succeed. And if you say no, I'll respect that. But please don't say no out of pride. I looked down at our joined hands, thinking about all the choices that had led me to this moment. The breakup with David that I'd convinced myself was for the best. The years of struggling to make it as an artist while working dead-end jobs. The mistake of dating Marcus. The humiliation of being stranded with that bill. But maybe none of it had been a mistake. Maybe it had all been leading me here, to this moment, to the second chance. What's the salary? I asked, looking up at him with a small smile. David named a figure that made my eyes widen. It was more than I'd made in the past 2 years combined. That's insane. David, I can't accept. It's the market rate for a creative director in New York. Actually, it's probably a little below market rate, but we're a startup, so there's equity to make up for it. Equity! My head was spinning. You'd own 15% of the company. As a founding member, I pulled my hand back, overwhelmed. This is too much. It's too fast. I need time to think. Of course, David said immediately. Take all the time you need. But Emma! He waited until I met his eyes. Stop selling yourself short. You're talented, you're creative, you're smart, and you deserve opportunities like this. Whether you take this job or not, promise me you'll start believing in yourself as much as I believe in you. Mrs. Kim appeared with a pot of barley tea and 2 cups, shooting David an approving look. You take care of her, David. She good girl. After she left, I couldn't help but laugh. How much have you told her about me? David had the grace to look embarrassed. I may have mentioned you once or twice, or every time I've eaten here for the past month. Every time. I come here a lot. The food reminds me of Seoul. And Mrs. Kim is a good listener. We finished our meal in comfortable silence, the weight of his job offer hanging between us. As David paid the bill, over my protests, Mrs. Kim insisted on packing us enough leftovers for a week. Outside the restaurant, David hailed another cab. Where to? He asked. Home, I guess. Queens. Let me ride with you. Make sure you get there safely. During the drive to my apartment, I found myself studying David's profile in the dim light of the cab. He'd always been handsome, but there was something different about him now. A confidence that came from knowing who he was and what he wanted. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything. Why did you really come back from Seoul? You said you had a good job there, a life. Why come back to New York? David was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Every success I had, every milestone I reached, the first person I wanted to tell was you. And when I couldn't, it felt hollow. He turned to look at me. I came back because I realized that success doesn't mean anything if you're not sharing it with the people you love. My breath caught. David, I'm not saying this to pressure you about the job, he said quickly. Whether you work for me or not, whether we try again or just stay friends, I needed you to know that. I came back for you, Emma. The cab pulled up in front of my building, a rundown walk-up in a not-great neighborhood. David looked at it with concern but didn't say anything as he helped me out with my leftovers. Thank you, I said, standing on the sidewalk. For everything. For saving me today, for the job offer, for still believing in me. Always, David said simply. On impulse, I stood on my tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Give me 3 days to think about the job. That's all I need. Take a week if you need it. 3 days, I insisted. I'll have an answer in 3 days. That night, alone in my tiny apartment, I pulled out my sketchbook and started drawing. For the first time in months, inspiration flowed freely. I drew bridges, literal bridges and metaphorical ones. bridges between cultures, between past and present, between who I was and who I could become. The next morning, I did something I should have done months ago. I blocked Marcus's number. Then I spent the day researching David's business, learning about cultural consulting, looking at successful campaigns that bridged Eastern and Western markets. The work was fascinating. I could see exactly where an artist's vision would elevate the business, in the visual identity, in the storytelling, in the way cultural concepts were translated across languages and contexts. On day 2, I met with my sister, Maya, for coffee. I told her everything, the disaster with Marcus, David's rescue, the job offer. "So let me get this straight," Maya said, stirring her latte. "The ex-boyfriend you never got over saved you from your disaster date, offered you your dream job, and basically declared his love for you. And you're hesitating." "I don't want to make decisions based on gratitude or vulnerability," I explained. "What if I take the job and it doesn't work out? What if I'm only considering this because I'm desperate?" Maya reached across the table and flicked my forehead. "Ow! What was that for?" "For being an idiot. Emma, you've been in love with David since college. The only reason you broke up was because you were both too scared to admit you needed each other. Now he's literally offering you everything. A career, financial stability, and a second chance at love. What are you afraid of?" "Failing," I admitted. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I take this opportunity and prove that I really am just a struggling artist who can't cut it in the real world?" "And what if you're amazing at it?" Maya countered. "What if this is exactly what you were meant to do? You can't let Marcus and all the other jerks who didn't see your worth make you forget who you are." That night, I sketched until 2 a.m., creating mock-ups for David's company, logo concepts, website designs, marketing materials. The ideas came so easily, flowing from my pen like they'd been waiting for the right outlet. On the 3rd day, I woke up knowing what I had to do. I called David at 9 a.m. "Emma!" He sounded surprised. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you until later." "Meet me at Central Park," I said, "by the Bethesda fountain. 1 hour. Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. Just meet me there." I hung up before he could ask more questions. Then I got dressed in my best outfit. Not the thrift store dress I'd worn to Café Laurent, but a simple black dress that I'd designed and sewn myself, paired with boots and a leather jacket. I looked like myself, an artist with edge and confidence. I arrived at the fountain 10 minutes early, clutching a portfolio I'd stayed up all night finishing. David arrived right on time, looking concerned and curious. "What's this about?" he asked. Instead of answering, I handed him the portfolio. "Open it." He did, and I watched his face as he flipped through page after page of designs, logo concepts for Park Consulting, the name I'd chosen for his company, mock-ups of marketing materials, sketches of office-based design, even concepts for a website and social media presence. "Emma," he breathed, "this is incredible. This is exactly what I envisioned, but better. How did you?" "I'm accepting the job," I said, cutting him off. "On one condition." "Name it." "We keep business and personal separate, at least at first. I need to prove to myself that I earned this position, that I'm good enough for this role. So at work, you're my boss and I'm your creative director. Nothing more." David's face fell slightly. "And outside of work?" I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Outside of work, we take things slow. Real slow. We date properly this time. No grand gestures, no expensive restaurants. Just us, getting to know each other again." "I can do that," David said, a smile spreading across his face. "I can absolutely do that." "Good, because I've realized something over the past 3 days." "What's that?" "That date with Marcus, as horrible as it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It showed me what I don't want. Someone who makes me feel small and ashamed. Someone who sees me as a game or a conquest." I reached up and touched David's face gently. "What I want is someone who sees me as an equal. Someone who challenges me to be better. Someone who believes in me, even when I don't believe in myself." "Emma, I'm not done," I said, smiling. "I also realize that I've been so afraid of depending on anyone that I've been rejecting help even when I desperately needed it. My pride almost cost me everything. But asking for help that day, calling you, wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was me recognizing that I don't have to do everything alone. David pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. You never have to be alone again. Not if you don't want to be. We stood there by the fountain, holding each other as tourists and joggers passed by, the autumn sun warm on our faces. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. So when do I start? I asked, pulling back to look at him. How about next Monday? That gives you time to give notice at your current jobs. About that, I said, grinning. I might have already quit all 3 of them this morning. David laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that made my heart soar. Confident, aren't you? No, I said honestly. Terrified, but I'm doing it anyway. 6 months later, Park Consulting officially launched with a client roster that included 3 major corporations looking to expand into Asian markets. My designs were featured in Ad Week as innovative cultural bridging at its finest. We hired a team of 12 people, artists, translators, cultural consultants, and business strategists. And David and we took it slow, just as I'd insisted. Coffee dates, walks in the park, cooking dinner at each other's apartments. We talked about everything. Our dreams, our fears, our past mistakes. We went to therapy together to make sure we didn't repeat the patterns that had broken us up the first time. On our official 6-month anniversary, marked from that day at Bethesda Fountain, David took me back to Mrs. Kim's restaurant. Over bulgogi and kimchi, he pulled out a small box. Before you panic, he said, seeing my eyes widen. It's not what you think. Not yet, anyway. Inside the box was a key. What's this? I asked. A key to the new office space I'm leasing. Or rather, the office space we're leasing. I want you to be a full partner, Emma. Not just an employee. 50-50, equal stake in everything we build. Tears filled my eyes. David, that's too much. It's exactly right, he insisted. You've proven over and over that you're not just an employee. You're the visionary behind this company. You deserve to own it as much as I do. I looked at the key, then at David, then back at the key. A year ago, I'd been drowning in debt, working 3 jobs, dating men who didn't value me. Now I was a business owner, a creative director, and dating the man I'd never stopped loving. You know what's funny? I said, wiping away tears. I should send Marcus a thank you card. David's eyebrows shot up. What? If he hadn't ditched me with that bill, I never would have called you. I never would have had the courage to take this leap. In a weird way, his cruelty gave me the push I needed to stop settling for less than I deserve. I'm not sure he deserves thanks, David said dryly. But I see your point. Although, I added with a mischievous grin, I did hear through the grapevine that his firm fired him last month for unethical behavior. Apparently, someone reported his little restaurant scam to HR. David tried to look innocent. Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. David Park, did you get Marcus fired? I simply made sure the right people knew about his pattern of behavior. What they chose to do with that information was entirely up to them. I leaned across the table and kissed him. My hero! Always! He whispered against my lips. Mrs. Kim appeared with more banchan, shaking her head at us with a smile. You two finally get smart. About time. As we laughed and ate and made plans for the future, I thought about that terrible brunch at Café Laurent. The humiliation, the fear, the shame. At the time, it had felt like rock bottom. But sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find the courage to climb back up. That $847.32 check had changed my life. Not because it was expensive, but because it forced me to admit I needed help. It pushed me to reach out to David. It showed me that pride could be just as destructive as desperation. I'd started that day thinking my life was falling apart. I'd ended it with a job offer, a second chance at love, and the beginnings of a business partnership that would change both our lives. Now, sitting across from David at Mrs. Kim's restaurant, holding the key to our shared future, I realized that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best beginnings. You just have to be brave enough to make the call, accept the help, and take the leap. And I had no other alternative but to trust in David, in myself, and in the possibility that even our biggest mistakes can become our greatest blessings.